Jean Piaget was a child developmental psychologist who was curious to see and explain how children's minds changed across time. And he invented a theory, which is, I suppose, narcissistically called Piaget's theory, which describes several different stages that children typically go through in their cognitive development. In this video, we're going to talk about the basis of his theory and talk about mental schemes, and then we'll get into the first stage, which is the sensorimotor stage. So Piaget's theory of cognitive development very simply is this. It attempts to explain how children's intelligence develops over time. Now, I've thrown the word intelligence around a fair amount in this class, and I've never formally defined it, but it is the capacity to adapt to new situations. Intelligence is a very broad concept. Some argue that we have many types of different intelligences. But there is a common factor to intelligence, and that is when you're presented with new information, can you adapt to that new information, incorporate it into what you already know, or extract something new from it, and then use it in the appropriate situation? That's what we're talking about with intelligence. And so Piaget thought that the basis of intelligence and how intelligence develops was that children have, and adults as well, have these things called mental schemes. Another way to think about this is they are concepts. Now, think about what a concept is. This is something probably somewhat more abstract that you may have learned as you got older, but imagine that you think, imagine an apple, all right? And you can think about all the information that you know that is related to the word apple. It's red, it has a waxy coat, it is delicious, it will keep the doctor away. And so you have these many bits of information that are all associated with the word apple. We can therefore call apple a concept. You have a concept of what an apple is, and that concept includes all of these details that you know about it. You have a concept of basketball. For some of you, that concept may be very narrow, such that you know, all right, there's a ball, they run around a court, and they try to get it into baskets. If you play basketball, you probably have a much more developed concept. Not only do you realize there's a ball, people run around, and there's a basket, but you also know that there are certain techniques for getting that ball into the basket. There are certain rules for how you can engage with another player. And so some people's concepts can be much more developed than others. Piaget thought that children start to create concepts as a way to build their intelligence. And he thought that there were two processes that contribute to the development of a concept. First, you have something called assimilation. This is when a child tries to fit new knowledge into an existing scheme or an existing concept. So this is, the child knows a few things. Maybe it knows, what an apple is. It knows that it's sweet and that people call it a fruit. And so if it comes into contact with something new, it might try to fit that new thing, let's say it's an orange, into the category of fruit. That would be assimilation. So it's really asking yourself, okay, or realizing to yourself, I'm learning something new, and this new thing that I'm learning about, the orange, shares features with something else that I know, apple. Therefore, they must be the same or similar things. They are both fruits. This is assimilation, trying to fit new knowledge into an existing scheme. You then have accommodation, which is trying to fit new knowledge into a new scheme. This is realizing that two things, an apple and an orange, may be different enough that they deserve their own category, their own concept. So perhaps they both belong to the fruit category, but an apple and an orange have fundamentally different characteristics. The skin is different. The extent to which you can eat and digest that skin is different. They taste different. The inside is a different consistency. And so it's realizing, oh, these things have several different features. They must be different things. So let me give you a more solid example of this. Let's say that you have a child, and you and this child go out one day, and you're, wandering through the neighborhood, and someone's there walking this creature that's fuzzy. It's on a leash. It has ears. It has a cute little nose. It's got 4 little feet, and it's got a tail. It's this little thing right here. Someone's walking that on a leash. And your child has never seen this thing before. So goes up to this creature and goes, what is this? And it's kind of scared of it. It might want to reach out and very cautiously engage. And you go, I don't know, that's a dog. And the child looks at you and goes, oh, okay, that's a dog. I think that's a dog. And so the child looks at it and goes, well, it has 4 feet. It has 4 legs. It's furry. It has a nose. It has big floppy ears. It's got these cute little eyes. It's got a tail. Anything that looks like this must be a dog. All right, it now has a concept of a dog. So you keep on walking, and then you walk by this one house, and there's an animal in a window sitting there looking out at you, and the child looks over and sees the animal, and he sees this. And he points at it and he goes, oh, that's a dog. And you look at your child like, well, why would that be a dog? Well, it has 4 legs, it's furry, it has a cute nose, 2 eyes, a tail, it has everything that a dog has. In that moment, when the child has categorized the dog and the cat the same way, that is assimilation. What the child has done is it has worked the cat into the existing concept that it has. Something that has 4 legs, furry as a tail, and cute nose. So they're both must be dogs. It's only until you, perhaps as a parent, go, no, honey, that's not a dog, that's a cat. The child then takes a closer look, pauses, looks dumbfounded for a moment, and goes, oh, it's a cat. Well, I guess the ears are a little bit, or the ears are a little bit different. The nose is not as long, and that thing is not on a leash, it's inside, and it's meowing rather than barking. So the child begins to slowly realize, these things have different features, so they are different things. That is accommodation. So, assimilation, fitting new knowledge into an existing scheme, identifying a cat as a dog because you have a concept of a dog. Accommodation is fitting new knowledge into an entirely new scheme because you realize they have different features, realizing that dogs and cats are really separate things. So a child is going to go through this process again and again and again as it gets older, and as adults, we're going to categorize the world around us in a similar way. Okay. That's the basis of Piaget's theory, that throughout the many stages as a child develops, they're going to be doing this process of assimilation and accommodation. Now I want to focus on the 4 stages, and in this particular lecture, we'll begin the sensorimotor stage, and in the following, we'll get into pre-operational, concrete operations, and formal operations. So all children start in the sensorimotor stage, and this lasts from about birth to 2 years of age. The basics of this are the child is using its senses and motor movement to explore. There are certainly things that the child can do with its brain, certain thoughts that it can have, that it can act on. But for the most part, what the child's primary objective is my senses are not yet fully developed. I need to find as many things as I possibly can with my senses to fine-tune them. So, if I see something across the room, I may want to reach out and grab it, to touch it, look at it, put it in my mouth and taste it, smell it, stimulate all of my senses with that thing that I see or that thing that I want to explore. So the advancement timeline for this stage, the earliest thing you'll see is that there are involuntary muscle movements. So that is those reflexes, the moro, grasping, rooting, etc. That is a sensorimotor type of behavior where the child is exploring perhaps a nipple or a finger by automatically attending to it. As time goes on, though, the child will then start to exhibit voluntary muscle movements. That is, voluntary meaning it has control over the muscle movements. And this is when parents start to get frustrated with their children usually. This is, now they've learned to propel themselves forward with their arms, and as time goes on, they learn to push themselves up with their arms, and maybe start balancing on their 2 feet, and start to run around. Well, this is an important revelation for the child because it wants to explore, it wants to experience all these things. So now that it can propel itself forward, it itself can pull itself or walk itself to something that it wants to see, it's going to do that to everything. It's going to explore whatever it wants to explore. So the voluntary muscle movements allow the child some more independence in exploring what it wishes to explore. That's how muscle development tends to happen during this stage. Another capacity that children are not born with and have to develop is something called object permanence. Object permanence is, and at this point you probably think it's a very basic ability, object permanence is knowing that if something leaves your sight, that it's still there. Children very early on, if you have an object, such as my face, and then you cover my face up with a piece of paper, a child may look at this and then say, oh, well, geez, you've disappeared. Where'd your face go? Wait, where? And you take the paper away and they go, oh, hey, I'm here. And they realize, oh, geez, thank God you're still here. Okay. I was afraid you left me for a minute there. You do this to a child that's near the end of the sensorimotor stage, even a little bit earlier than that, from about 1 to 1.5 years of age. The child will very clearly start to realize, oh, you know what, I know that you're still there. You put something over your face, oh, okay, you're just hiding behind that object. This is the fun of playing peekaboo. Peekaboo is fun is because when you put your hands over your face like this, and your child can't see you anymore, it really thinks that you're gone. So that when you pull your hands away, the child is then surprised and happy and relieved that you are still there. You try to play peekaboo with a child that's somewhat older, they're bored by it. It's not as interesting anymore. Of course, you're just moving your hands around. That's object permanence. At the end of this stage, you have a very, very important developmental milestone, and that is symbolic thought. Symbolic thought is the ability to know that certain symbols or objects can stand in for something else. So that is, you can write down a certain pattern, perhaps with a pencil, or you can draw a picture and know that that symbol represents something. This is the basis of language. Language is a system of symbols that stands in for something that is not currently there. So for example, at this point, the child would not know and not be able to learn that if you put together the string of letters B-A-L-L, that stands for this object that is actually round in the world around you, a ball. So symbolic thought is knowing that those symbols stand in for something that actually exists in the world, a ball. This is a really important milestone because in the next stage, the pre-operational stage, we'll begin to talk about language development and how children use language from here on out to propel the rest of their cognitive development. So this happens near the end, and it's what transitions into the next several stages.